Essentially, the idea of dumb jock is totally wrong. The stronger you are, the faster you think.
Dr. Gabrielle Lyon is a board-certified physician, fellowship-trained in nutritional sciences and geriatrics, and the New York Times best-selling author of Forever Strong.
If we choose the easy route now, life is going to be harder. But if you choose the harder now, life will be easier.
As the creator of muscle-centered medicine, she's a powerful voice challenging everything we've been told about aging, fitness, and what it means to be strong.
In that moment, I realized that it wasn't an obesity epidemic, that it really was an issue of muscle. And skeletal muscle is the organ of longevity.
I thought that was a fascinating statement.
Alongside her sister Maddy, they share the physical and mental secrets that keep them both thriving.
So health and wellness has been something part of my whole life. But what I learned specifically from Gabrielle was actually life-changing.
Join hosts Martin Luther King III, Arndrea Waters King, Marc Kielburger, and Craig Kielburger for a transformative conversation about building strength in your body, your mind, and the relationships that matter most.
What are 3 of the biggest myths that you would like people to stop believing?
Well, the first one is that
Welcome to My Legacy. Today's guest is changing how millions think about aging, health, and what it means to be truly strong. Gabrielle Lyon has trained Navy SEALs, Green Berets, and NASCAR drivers. And now she's helping everyday people discover what it means to be strong at any age. Gabrielle, we are honored to have you here. And as we know so well on this show, no one walks their path alone. Our guests always bring along someone who has witnessed their journey firsthand. Gabrielle, would you do us the honor of introducing your plus one?
So my plus one is my sister, Dr. Maddy Novich, who is a PhD in criminology and a professor, and really just has been with me through this entire journey and our whole lives. I couldn't have done it without her.
Who is the elder of the two?
Me.
I always ask, I'm the eldest sister, so there you go.
Maddy, you knew Gabrielle long before the world did. Can you share a story from your childhood that gives us a glimpse of the doctor she'd become?
Absolutely. So I'm going to take you on a journey back to our childhood when it was the two of us and we went camping with our father, Nathan Resnick. And this was something that we did as kids all the time. And he would take us on these epic hikes. Right now, I must have been 4 or 5, and my sister's a little bit older. And he would take us on these, 10-mile hikes and load up these backpacks that we were then carrying to our remote cabin that we were then sleeping in our tents. And, the concept of legacy of strength in our family has been there since the beginning. And so we would do these long hikes, and I just remember crying because my backpack was so heavy. It wasn't heavy, of course, but it was heavy to me. And I remember us stopping multiple times along these hikes and unloading my backpack into our dad's backpack, and into my sister's backpack. And she would carry like extra poundage up these 10, 15-mile hikes because that's just what she did, right? It was no complaining. It was just, this is what sisters do for each other. And, that was just one of many examples, but she will take the weight for you. She will carry it for you, and she won't make fun of you or, put you down because you can't carry the weight. She's just there as like a supporting and a strong figure. And that was just, we had many of those journeys, and she was very used to taking on all the extra weight for me. So it was a wonderful childhood to grow up with a sister like Gabrielle.
I love that. So you all were rucking before it became a thing, like
yeah.
the weighted backpacks.
Oh, yeah. So we started rucking. Again, we had a very physical childhood. By the time I was 5, I was doing 10-mile bike rides with my dad.
Wow.
And it's really interesting because in this space right now, people will say, well, I see that your kids train. And I think to myself, and I say this often, we're not raising children, we're raising adults.
Mm.
And the better habits we can instill in them now, then they don't have to spend a lifetime trying to break old poor ones. So it really is critical as just we think about our legacy and the next generation, that this language of strength and this language of muscle as health becomes secondary.
Love that. Gabrielle, I'm going to give a shout out to your new book, The Forever Strong Playbook. In anticipation of this wonderful interview, and just because I've been a fan of your work, I have read Forever Strong and loved it. And every time I went back to the book, I would have amazing things that I would learn. And also my lovely wife, Roxanne, who's a yogi, takes her health very seriously, but not necessarily her muscle health very seriously. So we've learned a lot in the process from you. And in your book, you talk about the turning point for you as a doctor, seeing the system go so wrong, seeing patients come to you with chronic fatigue, obesity, chronic disease. And take us back, and you talk a little bit about this in the book, where you said, oh my goodness, this system is not set up for success. I need to look at this differently.
Well, I'm excited to take you through this story. And I first want to go on record of saying that studying geriatrics was not my first choice. I had studied nutritional sciences, and that had always been my first love. And I was trained by one of the world-leading experts in protein metabolism. After going through residency, my mentor, Dr. Donald Lehman, said, listen, if you want to make the impact that I know that you can in this world, you have to go back to do a fellowship. I'm like, okay, great. I would love to study nutrition. But the deal is, as a physician, to go back and do a fellowship, you must pick a medical specialty for funding for that research. And so what was available to me was geriatrics. And that, unbeknownst to me, really changed the trajectory of my life. Here I was thinking all about health and wellness, really kind of ignoring that aging process. And even, because it's scary. Mortality is scary to think about, I think, especially for us in this culture. It's not, we don't face our mortality frequently. It's something that happens out there. And I was working on a project that was looking at the intersection between body composition and brain function. That was my fellowship project, as I was doing this fellowship in nutritional sciences and geriatrics. And one of the participants, she was a woman in her mid-50s, and I fell in love with her. She was awesome. She had 3 kids. She had always put herself last. She had cycled through the same 20 to 30 pounds her entire life. And I imaged her brain because part of the study was working and looking at brain function. And her brain looked like the beginning of an Alzheimer's brain.
In her 50s.
In her 50s. I couldn't believe it, number one, because this woman had done everything that everyone had told her to do from the medical community. And number two, when I went to my mentors and teachers and fellow colleagues, they said, well, this is just the way that it is. These are the recommendations, and this is the outcome. I think that those of us that have the ability to do something have a responsibility. And I promised I would never let that happen again. That, as we've been chasing this obesity epidemic that we've been chasing for the last 50 plus years, in that moment, I realized that it wasn't an obesity epidemic, that it really was an issue of muscle. And skeletal muscle is the organ of longevity. Had she pivoted, had we pivoted, had she been taught about this organ system, she would not be in the position that she was in that moment. And frankly, if I can change, listen, I'd love to change 1 million lives, but if I can change 1, 5, give me 5, then I think that we can begin to really reorient ourselves to the power of skeletal muscle.
Well, you've certainly changed millions of lives, and your books are so well known, and your theories are so well known, but just break it down for us. At the end of the day, you talk very much about glucose, insulin, metabolic health, and the interrelationship between those three. Just pretend somebody doesn't know your work. I know most people do, but just explain that intersectionality for us.
Sure. Well, first of all, muscle, skeletal muscle, this system, we've forever thought about it as performance and exercise and strength. And it is all of those things, but it's so much more. Skeletal muscle, and the dermatologists don't like me for this, it is the largest organ system in the body. It's not skin, it's muscle. It makes up 40% or more of an individual. Listen, if you are more jacked like my husband, it might make up 50%. But the performance aspect, if we take that off the table, what is skeletal muscle's role in the foundation of health and wellness, but also imagine its role in chronic disease. So skeletal muscle at 40% your body weight, if it becomes inflamed, now you have this tissue that is so massive that is inflamed and dysregulated, which happens, it also becomes weaker. It also becomes less efficient. And it also becomes less capable at utilizing all of the substrates and fuel that we need. It's less flexible. And skeletal muscle, when we think about insulin resistance, so what are the big diseases we're worried about? Alzheimer's, which is type 3 diabetes in the brain, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and obesity, let's just say, and cancer. So we're worried about these diseases, and cancer we'll leave out because it's very complex. But we do know that there's a metabolic component, and having obesity puts you at risk. So if we think about skeletal muscle as this primary sink, these chronic diseases are driven by metabolic dysregulation. So elevated levels of glucose, elevated levels of insulin, elevated levels of triglycerides. Skeletal muscle is your primary sink. If you A, don't have enough, or B, the muscle is not healthy and able to receive these nutrients, then instead of it looking like a fillet, it looks like a marbled steak. And this is where these chronic diseases begin. So obesity is another symptom of unhealthy muscle first.
Gabrielle, you just mentioned something that was important in terms of Alzheimer's. I remember you wrote in the book that Alzheimer's is diabetes of the brain. I thought that was a fascinating statement. Can you just help us understand that part?
Well, there are multiple kinds of dementia, but Alzheimer's dementia, the majority, easily 2/3 of Alzheimer's dementia is related to metabolism and really metabolic dysfunction. And to take it a step further, what I mean by that is we've all heard about insulin resistance in our body. Insulin is a hormone, it's a peptide released from the pancreas that helps remove glucose, carbohydrates from the bloodstream into tissues. Alzheimer's is in part type 3 diabetes of the brain. So it's insulin resistance in the brain. What is good for muscle is good for brain. And I want to touch on this because this is important. There is a brain-muscle axis. There is a brain-muscle connection. Number one, what is good for muscle, both nutritionally and body composition-wise, is good for brain. When you contract skeletal muscle, because it is an organ system, it secretes peptide hormones called myokines. It secretes little molecules that go to the brain that affect memory, neurogenesis, brain volume. Essentially, the idea of dumb jock is totally wrong. The stronger you are, the greater your working memory. The stronger you are, the greater your executive function, which is thinking with numbers. The faster you move, the faster you think. There is this relationship, this access between what we do with our body and the input that it has on and in our brain. So there's the metabolic component of Alzheimer's, which is critical, type 3 diabetes of the brain. In addition, the majority of individuals do not train, do not do resistance training, and are not meeting the minimum training recommendations. When you contract this organ system, it directly affects the brain.
Let me ask you this, because there are many ways of strength training, right? And if you don't have access to a gym, or if you're traveling a lot like the three of us do, so you're not taking dumbbells on the road. There are, exercise bands. Do you believe body weight? What are different forms of strength training other than what we kind of think about, lugging 100-pound dumbbells?
I travel all the time. And what I do is I have a travel bag that has a handful of items in there. And I'm going to share with you what they are. Number one, resistance bands. I carry a bunch of resistance bands. And when I say a bunch, right now I'm down to 2. I've kind of streamlined. There was 5 for a while, and then maybe there was a little more. But now I'm down to 2 resistance bands, one with a handle, one without.
Yep.
I also travel with little devices. So number one, you could get away with that. That simply would be enough. One resistance band, one with a handle, and then one I use a round one for leg workout, for shoulder workout, any of those kinds of exercises. If someone doesn't want to do that, or wants to do that and wants to even take it up a notch, you could travel with blood flow restriction. Bluetooth blood flow restriction. There are these little bands. I don't have them in my bag, but they're about this big. So there's only one way not to do it, but there's a million different ways to do it right. The only wrong way to do it is to not do
Is
it.
to not do it. Yeah.
Love that.
I'd also like to interject that you will find my sister doing push-up challenges.
I was just thinking that. Any airport, no
In
problem.
the airport, you will always find her doing
Wow.
push-ups and challenging anybody who is interested to a push-up challenge.
There you go. So you can do body weight as well. You incorporate.
Yeah. And that's what I cover in the playbook,
Mhm.
because what the data suggests is something called VILPA. So it's vigorous intermittent physical activity throughout the day. And what that is you could every hour get up and do 10 air squats pretty fast. It's doing something to get your heart rate up. We think about training as this entity over here in a discrete moment of time. That's not how we have to train, right? So if the concept is we have to contract skeletal muscle tissue, then what we do, as opposed to, this is the only time I'm going to move during this training session, we begin to integrate it into our life.
Scrolling won't change your life, but subscribing just might. Tap that button and stay connected to conversations that count.
Maddy, I'd like to bring you into the conversation. You're talking about the push-up challenges, which I just found so endearing. But you also recently posted a video of the two of you working out together with a message. I'm going to quote here: "Being strong is a deeply embedded value we share." So just tell us a little bit about that perspective and what some of the things that you've learned from Gabrielle's work that impacts you and your health and longevity on your side.
Absolutely. Well, I'll start. I have done physical fitness my whole life. Martial arts was my sport of trade, and
Time out. She's a black belt, by the way. She's a black belt.
I only achieved brown belt before I started. Yeah.
Also, she was a ranked runner, like in the relay. She got off the couch. Here's the thing. So I'm not a natural athlete. This girl, she's like, chilling out, gets off the couch, and I don't know, you got like second in state. Oh, Dr. Rowan, okay. I just want.
I was a sprinter. That's true. And I did do martial arts my whole life. I started with jujitsu and kickboxing, and then competed in Korea, and ended up in a mixed martial arts school. So health and wellness has been something part of my whole life. But what I learned specifically from Gabrielle was actually life-changing. And there's a couple of things I want to talk about. One, I think, is just practical daily applications that anybody can do. One thing that I learned is that you should start your day off with 30 grams of protein, right? Like, I normally wouldn't eat, and I'm naturally not inclined to eat until about 11 a.m. And learning from Gabrielle, that was a mistake. I should wake up, and within 2 hours of waking up, I should prime my body with protein so that I am setting up my muscles for success, right? And so that's one thing I've learned from her. Second is there is no excuse not to work out. The only mistake is not doing it. And so anytime my sister and I are traveling together, we always prioritize working out together. I spend the summers abroad, and this past summer, my husband and I joined gyms in 4 different cities in Europe, just because it's such a priority. And that, I think, was really, it was a priority to begin with, but learning to focus on muscle strength was something that I learned specifically from Gabrielle, right? It's about resistance. I was doing a Peloton, and nothing wrong with doing a Peloton, right? And spinning all the time, which I love, but at the same time, it wasn't enough for muscle strength. So that was another thing that I learned, is just to really focus on building muscle, priming my body with protein, hitting daily protein goals. Those are very achievable for most people, I think.
Love that. That's amazing.
So you're both married and have talked about your wonderful partners. Maddy, you've shared that you and your husband have regular alignment meetings.
Yes.
Honey?
Yes.
Honey,
Alignment meetings. Can you talk about how it keeps you connected?
Absolutely. So having a strong partner is so critical to my experience. And I have an amazing partner, and we don't really argue very much because we have set up this process of doing alignment meetings where we feel when we are misaligned, right? So if we have a different goal, or we have something we need to accomplish, we will sit down over coffee and do what's called DDC. We debate, decide, commit to whatever
Ooh,
it
this
is.
is good.
And these are interesting takeaways that my husband learned being in sort of corporate. I mean, he's in tech. He's in a tech startup, but he was in a great tech startup. And they were very thoughtful about how they would teach the different players to work together. And he brought those home to our household and said, okay, hey, we're having a misalignment on how you're feeling, right? You feel like you're taking on more of the parenting. I don't want you to feel that way. Let's sit down, have an alignment meeting, and let's go over which tasks I can do, which tasks you want to do. And something actually I learned from my sister, which is the idea to lean into your strengths and outsource your weaknesses, right? And so we would go through our strengths and weaknesses and take on different strategies so that we were aligned, so no one felt like they were being overworked or that there was a disproportionate distribution of work in the house, because parenting, we have 3 small kids, well, 12, 7, and 4. It's a busy house, and we're both full-time working. And so having those alignment meetings really taught us the power of communication. We often have these alignment meetings in front of our kids when we need to, so that we can set the example for healthy discussions of adults, so that they know how to communicate with each other. And then the debate, decide, commit, I think, is actually a really powerful couples strategy, because you can't go back and say, well, I told you that was the wrong idea, because you debated it, you decided together, and you committed to that course of action. So when it goes the right way, it's amazing. And when it goes the wrong way, you can't point fingers. And so it allows for a very healthy household, I think.
This is so good.
Keeps everyone accountable.
I'm writing notes.
I know.
This is so delicious. Love it.
And Gabrielle, you're constantly traveling for work also. What are some ways you and Shane have found to stay connected?
So my husband is a little unusual. He was a Navy SEAL for 10 years prior to his second career. He is now in his second career as a surgical resident, and he's in his third year at Baylor in urology. His work schedule is about, 100 hours a week. It's tremendous. So I am not nearly as organized as my sister in that way. Basically, I'm shining a light. Wake up. This is true. It's not good. But I will say he is a professional teammate. And this is just inherent in this archetype of individual. And my expectation of him right now is that he needs to get through training. And while we are connected when we can be, he very much needs that connection. We are in a season that is highly dynamic, and not so much on my end, but really on his. Surgical training is not, it's very intense because they're training him up to be world class. And I recognize that now. We both do. And your question is, how do we stay connected? And it's really, we try to schedule once a week time together. But honestly, he needs to sleep. There are things that, so right now the season is, I got it, I can manage. And brother, when you are done, you are taking over all of it.
I want to give a plug for Shane that he's also very accessible if you need him, right? Like there's
Totally.
and he's a team player. Like my daughter had a fight with an escalator and lost, and had a huge gash. And I'm like, who do I call? And I'm like, of course I call Shane, the Navy SEAL trauma, ER thick. And he responds right away. So I totally, the seasons, he is busy, but he is, like sister said, a professional team player. And if you ever need him, he's there, which is like amazing.
Let's
amazing.
underscore that too, because I do think I was using in my mind the term season even before you said it, because I think it's so important for families, for couples, to acknowledge the season that you're in. It's a different season when you have a 7-month baby than when you have a 17-year-old that's going off to college. And so I think part of even alignment meetings, or it's also to acknowledge the season that the couple is in or the family is in. I think that's another brilliant takeaway.
Yeah.
Now, Maddy, Gabrielle also interviewed you on her podcast, and you talked about setting boundaries, prioritizing yourself as a professor and mom of 3. So what are some practical ways you've learned to actually do that?
Absolutely. I think one of those is absolutely leaning into your strengths and outsourcing your weaknesses. So I think asking for help, whether you pay for it, whether it's from friends or family, moms do a million things a day and they can't do it all. And they shouldn't have to do it all. So I think setting boundaries of what you as a mother or what I as a mother want to accomplish, and then asking for help or hiring for help or ordering or whatever it is makes you or me, the proverbial mom, like a better human being, right? When I'm more relaxed, I'm a better parent. So I think really identifying what you want to do. And my sister's a great example, right? Eating healthy and high protein is really important. I would not trust her to cook food. So she did. So I think just allowing for, understanding what you're good at, understanding what you're not good at, bringing in help to fill in what you're not good at is really important. And I think also, my sister is another great example, or all working moms are great examples. There's a lot of research to show that working moms are really critical for daughters to see themselves as future professionals. So it's important, I think, also to have that recognition that working on yourself is actually setting the example for future generations. So I say that as a professor. I think, boundaries too is I set work boundaries. I say, okay, I'm on campus. I'm with my students. I love my students. I don't answer emails after 8 p.m. unless it's an emergency. Like, you'll hear from me the next day, but when my time is done with my students, my time is done. And I will see you the next day. And they're very respectful, because if you are transparent and you articulate your boundaries, everybody's expectations are managed.
Now, you've also said, you've called your sister out a little bit on this and said that she doesn't do a very good job of taking care of herself. Maybe it's that carrying that strength for everyone else from a child. So what would you wish for your sister to do more of for herself?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I would wish her to do more self-care, I'd say. Like, do more massages, go slower, stay home with the kids, because she feels that she is doing so much for the world, and she's doing so much for her family, and she does some stuff for herself, don't get me wrong, but I think she could really hone in and take care of that golden goose, is what our mother always says. Take care of the golden goose, because when you take care of you, you can better take care of everybody else.
That's what I wish for you for 2026, Gabrielle. The golden goose.
Love it.
You talk about recovery as an important part of not just working out, but just as an overall mindset. And you said recovery isn't passive, it's proactive. But in this case, you're talking about sleep, light exposure, hot and cold. Why do you think we've gotten recovery so wrong, and what are some of the critical elements of recovery?
Yeah, I think that we've gotten recovery a little bit wrong, because we think that recovery is, and this can have many layers of meaning to it, that it's just a warm bubble bath. Oh, I got to chill out. Oh, that's what recovery is. And maybe that is, but I think recovery is where a lot of the magic happens. And when I say a lot of the magic, I mean, you are not making gains when you're training. And if you think about your profession, you're not coming up with these amazing creative ideas when you're grinding it out. You're sitting back, and then all of a sudden the idea fairy just, oh, this is a great idea. And it comes where there's moments of a little bit of idle behavior. At least this is what I found. So there's the mental recovery, and then the physical recovery, the active process. And you asked me, what have we gotten wrong? And I don't know if we've gotten it wrong, but I do think things like cold exposure, heat exposure, that there is more to this physical domain than training and eating well. And this is the environmental aspect. And that's where I think recovery really fits in. And what I bet that we're going to find a lot more about is that that light makes a huge difference. The lights that are around us and on us, I think we are going to see more and more data that it affects us much more deeply than we recognize. And so being outside is going to be more and more important.
Okay, so we recently had Tamsin Fidel and her husband Ira on this podcast talking about menopause. And for all of our audience listening, you should definitely send that one to all of the men in your life, and you can thank us later. Gabrielle, I know that Tamsin interviewed you on her podcast. What are the 3 things that you tell every woman in their 40s and 50s that they need to start doing right now?
Strength training. Strength is a responsibility, not a luxury. Nail in your nutrition. It doesn't get easier, but everything is possible. And number 3, carry a neutral mind. The more neutral you are, the less swings. The higher you go, the lower you fall. And if you maintain a level of neutrality, then you can make the next right action happen, which allows you to be more discerning. Be strong, eat your protein, and be neutral. And actually, I said it in the wrong order. So the neutrality piece should be first. I think part of what has happened is that we're always chasing this dopamine and this drive, and it allows for a lot of distractions. So instead of being able to take the next right action, we're chasing the shiny object. We're looking at the next thing to do rather than allowing for ourselves to be very discerning that this is the next right action and there's no narrative around it. And when we become very neutral, we have more flexibility in and clarity at taking that next right action. And so that's probably the first piece, because then that allows you to not skip the gym and recognize that strength is a responsibility and that it's so much more. It's the act of achieving and going after strength that has this cascade effect, because it's not the strength that we're after, really. It's the whole system body effect of muscle, which affects the brain, metabolism, bone, all of the things that are important to us. It's truly at our fingertips, if we reorient to that central focus of muscle.
Maddy, you've become known as the cargo bike mom. You have 5 cargo bikes and use them to move your 3 kids, groceries, even furniture around New York City. What's been the biggest unexpected benefit?
These bikes are life-changing for me. I did not bike really until I went to the Netherlands for a couple of weeks and started biking and came back, and the benefits are really endless. There's health and wellness benefits, right? Even e-assist cargo bikes give a moderate exercise. They are helping us reduce our risk of being in a car, right? 1 in 3, I mean, I can get all very technical on this because I spend a lot of time thinking about this, but really there's so many benefits. The cargo bike has truly transformed my life. It's transformed a number of people's lives. One thing that I think is a very interesting metric point when we think about why we use these bikes is we accept in our society 40,000 deaths with cars. There's 6 million accident car crashes a year. And so this is something, as a New Yorker, was a very uncomfortable place for me to think about. So we live in New York City. We don't have a car. We have these cargo bikes instead. We move our family around. We move furniture. They can do almost everything a car can. And we bike in them year round. And they are cost savings. I mean, there's a whole slew of benefits. But I think really recognizing how fun transportation can be, what kind of connection it can bring, that a vast majority of me and my family we're moving within 1 to 3 miles of our home, which all can easily be done on a cargo bike. So it's been a really fun journey to learn and discover how incredible these bikes can truly be.
And they can find you at Cargo Bike Mama, right? Look you up. Okay.
MOMMA.
MOMMA.
MMA. Yes.
Gabrielle, you've been pushing back on decades of conventional wisdom about diet and fitness. For our listeners, I would like to ask you, what are 3 of the biggest myths that you would like people to stop believing?
Well, the first one is that we eat too much protein. We don't. And we have to recognize that the current recommendations are set at a minimum. And, people will say, oh, well, the RDA, which is the recommended dietary allowance, well, that number is based on something called a nitrogen balance value. I don't know of any health outcome that is based on a nitrogen balance value. So this is a early 1900 technique that has come up with this number, and we still use this number. So the conversation is absolutely irrelevant for the amount of protein that we are having. It's not that, is the RDA enough? Is the RDA even a relevant number? And that is a huge misunderstanding. So number 1, we are not eating enough protein for optimal aging, period. We're maybe eating enough protein to not be worse than yesterday. But if we believe that skeletal muscle is the organ of longevity, there's only 2 ways to fuel it and stimulate it. Number 1, training, and number 2, dietary protein. So that piece, if someone left away with nothing else, it's to understand the importance of protein and muscle and aging. So that's the first myth. And number 2, women are not going to get bulky. I've been trying for the last 30 years. Same with my sister. It's very difficult to put on muscle, and the act of trying and the focus on it is critical to longevity, health, and wellness. The stronger you are, the longer you live. The more muscle mass you have, the better your ability to mitigate Alzheimer's and cardiovascular disease and all these diseases that we're working against. And muscle is what you have to gain. It's not what you have to lose. And then I think the third one, in terms of health and wellness, I don't know what I would pick for the third one, but what is really on my mind is that we can do hard things. And this comfort and that we're always looking for comfort and making things easy on us. If we choose the easy route now, life is going to be harder. But if you choose the harder now, life will be easier.
Gabrielle and Maddy, you are so both incredibly impressive. This has been a remarkable conversation to witness the bond between two sisters who are both changing the world in their own ways. You reminded us that strength isn't about perfection, it's about showing up. And it's about living your true values and doing the hard things that matter most. So some of the things I loved in terms of our conversation today, the fact that we're not raising children, we're raising adults. The fact that we, of course, should be all traveling with our resistance bands. Make sure we pack that next time. Recognizing the seasons in one's relationship, and of course, the power of a neutral mind, being strong, and eating protein. Thank you for inspiring this conversation, and thank you for both living your legacy every single day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. New episodes drop every Tuesday, with bonus content every Thursday. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a moment.